I think that's where gold and Bitcoin fit into the equation. Best performing stock in the entire stock markets. Maybe coal is the new tobacco, and harder for the governments to go to war. They can't print the money.
I want to talk about what a person can do to
Great.
not be a victim.
So what could somebody do today to prepare versus become a victim?
Well, a lot of things. If we're talking about from a financial standpoint, I think you have to look at commodities because they're extremely cheap right now, historically speaking. If you
Talking
look
about gold and silver right now.
and oil and uranium and copper, things like that, agriculture. If you look at commodities as a whole relative to stocks or financial assets, we're at an all-time low going all the way back to 1900. So that's, again, we like to buy things when they're cheap.
How do you buy commodities? Because Kim and I just buy the physical.
Yeah, you can just buy producers. So as an example, if you've got, coal is another commodity, believe it or not, that I actually like. So since 1968, what do you think is the best performing stock in the entire stock market since 1968?
I'm going to guess because of your lead-in, it's going to be coal-based.
No, Altria, tobacco, cigarettes.
Seriously?
That's right. And the best performing sector in the best performing sector in the stock market since the mid 1990s has been tobacco. Most people would never ever know that. So what I'm trying to think through on my own now is if you look at the attitude that everyone's had towards tobacco, since the mid 1990s, it's the exact same thing with coal now. So maybe coal is the new tobacco. And we look at it just from a standpoint of energy, but people forget that coal is a large component of steel. So if you're bullish on the emerging markets developing like China and India did, then you've got to be bullish coal.
Well, there's something else, about tobacco. I was reading the stats on deaths. Just before 2020 started, the estimated death rate for cancer was 606,000 Americans. And so far, coronavirus has only killed 200. When you look at the numbers, you kind of wonder what's going on. That's what I do.
Yeah, as human beings, we're extremely irrational. And that's what makes us so poor investors. So we've got to try to eliminate that emotion from the equation and just look at the statistics and invest within a framework. But as far as what else people can do outside of investing and looking at things that are cheap and like commodities, that by the way will do extremely well in an inflationary environment if the Fed and the government keep creating money just out of thin air.
What's your crystal ball say about the old-time social programs like Social Security and Medicare, and then all the pensions? Because my pessimistic ball says they ain't going to be there.
Yeah, I think they'll probably be there, but you won't be able to buy anything with your Social Security check. So yes, in nominal terms, you'll get your $2,000 or $3,000 a month, but it'll buy you a loaf of bread because they're going to print and create so much money to make them whole, and it trickles down, goes into inflation. It drives up consumer prices, especially if you have this move towards socialism, Marxism, or even anti-capitalism. You have to think through what that does. That reduces the amount of supply the amount of goods and services in the economy. That reduces supply. So if you have a reduced amount of supply and a greater amount of money chasing those goods and services, you have inflation going straight up. So I think you'll be made whole, but you're not going to be able to purchase anything with that pension or that Social Security.
So what else would you like to say to people about preparing? Because Kim and I have been preparing for years and years and years and years and years, and it's nice.
Yeah. Well, I think that you've got to own some gold. I know you talk about this all the time, but I think that's where gold and Bitcoin fit into the equation. I just look at them as two completely separate asset classes with two different purposes, right? I think that gold is there as an insurance policy just to protect your purchasing power. So I always say you buy gold not to get rich, but to stay rich. And then Bitcoin is more of a speculation, or you've got some asymmetry there, probably a lot more upside than you have downside. So that's kind of, and it's those are unique assets in that they don't have any counterparty risk. And see, that's very important when you're in the everything bubble. I think the main thing, though, is we've got to figure out a way to limit the ability for the central planners to create more currency. That's what it's about. And if you look at the gold guys, the Bitcoin guys, we're all on the same team here.
Right.
And that's limiting the central planners from creating all of those currency units that trickle down and play into the Cantillon
How does
effect.
that happen? How does that happen?
Well, as an example, with Bitcoin, there's only 21 million of them. So if we went onto, let's say, a Bitcoin standard, I'm not saying this is what we're doing.
Right.
I'm just let's go through a thought experiment. Well, that would prevent the Jerome Powell from coming in and taking his balance sheet from 4 trillion to 7 trillion. That would prevent, and not only that, but see, a lot of people on the left say, oh, well, yeah, that's terrible because we can't do these social programs. But what they forget is it would also make it harder for the governments to go to war. They can't print the money. The only way they could go to war is if they actually tax the citizens first. And so if we're not on board with them going to war, we're like, no, I'm not paying for that.